hymnal to number 650. We as a church have been doing... We're going to sing it twice more through, okay? The choir's going to sing, they're going to be in a round, but you guys are going to sing with the sopranos. They start, so you just sing it through twice. Don't pay attention to those other robes in the choir loft. You sing it through twice. Now, in order for the other parts to catch up, you're going to finish before the last part finishes. So at the end, just sing that last line, rejoice, rejoice again, and say rejoice. Just keep singing that when you've sung it through twice, and then we'll all end together. And if you ever get lost and have no idea where you are, just do that, rejoice, rejoice again, and say rejoice, and you'll be fine. Everybody, I can see by the look of complete understanding on all your faces that you've got that. So we're going to do the same thing here. You just sing it through twice, but the choir is going to break into parts. And you will too in actually another couple weeks, but we're not there yet. So, all right.
Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, 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 again I say rejoice.
That made my eyebrows hurt. Good morning. What a gorgeous day it is out there. Chilly, but it's nice being in here, isn't it? Our New Testament lesson this morning is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 41 through 52. You can find this passage on page 1592 of your pew Bibles. 1592. Listen for the word of the Lord. Every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. After the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Before I begin anything, I've got to apologize for being an old curmudgeon and forgetting that we now have young ladies amongst our scouts. So every time I say he, please forgive me. To be so kind, it's just one of those things that's going to happen. Let us pray. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. We already know today's Scout Sunday. It's a day we look forward to each and every year. We, the congregation, gather to recognize and applaud our scouts. The scouts and their families come out of respect for the church and its contribution to scouting. Whatever the reason, it's good to be able to come together and worship our Lord. When I first began thinking about this day and this service, a lot of thoughts about scouting ran through my mind. I personally started my days of scouting at about 7 years old by becoming a Cub Scout. I moved up and moved on into the Boy Scouts until I was 15, and I had to start working. Between work and school, there wasn't enough time to give to scouting, so I left as a Life Scout with a lifelong regret that I couldn't hang in there to make Eagle. My respect for the program and the people involved in scouting is deep and everlasting. In our New Testament lesson, we heard about Jesus at the age of 12, going to the temple and sitting with the elders, teaching them as well as learning from them. The Bible tells that he was 12, but the story gains credence by the fact that he didn't give a moment's thought to his parents and what they must have been thinking when he disappeared. In our youth, we tend to act impulsively, and Jesus was true to form. Jesus had received a great upbringing and was still somewhat impetuous like all of us as we grow and mature. When I entered the Army at 18, I became involved with and worked with the cavalry. Now, it's not cavalry, it's cavalry. It often gets mistaken. The cavalry has used and often continues to use scouts as part of their makeup. We're all familiar with the mountain man or Indian scout portrayed in the cowboy and Indian movies. Of course, they go out and do great things for the Army. Now, these are not Boy or Cub Scouts, but a specialized part of a cavalry unit whose job is to find the enemy and determine as much as possible about them. In the early armies of the world, the scouts used any means possible to get near the enemy but not be detected. Today, the scouts use helicopters to do their job. I tell you this because the founder of the Boy Scouts, Robert Baden-Powell, was a major general in the British Army who was first known for developing and refining the use of scouts in the wars in South Africa. He wrote a manual for military scouts, and it received wide acclaim in the civilian and military communities. As a result of the acceptance by young boys, he developed and published Scouting for Boys in 1908. From this, the Boy Scouts became a worldwide movement. In Germany, the Scouts are known as Pfadfinder, or Pathfinders. Military Scouts need to know woodsmanship, an understanding of wildlife, the environment, and survival in all conditions, skills, crafts, and so on. Sound familiar? When I went into the Army, I immediately discovered that all the training I had as a scout assisted me in learning the skills that the Army required of all of its soldiers. Even though I could not make it to Eagle, I had earned a multitude of life skills in scouting, which proved valuable in my development as a man. Something that's ongoing, by the way. I'm still kind of growing up. One other keen point about scouting, when I worked for a large defense contractor, I was sent 15 or 20 resumes every week to assist in determining which applicants would be called in for an interview for possible hire. In very little time, I would put the resumes into two piles. The bring them in pile and the we're not interested pile. And it happened quickly. Every male applicant who was an Eagle Scout was brought in for interview. Every single one of them. There were obviously other considerations for actually hiring someone, but the Eagles all got to the next level. I and most others hold Eagle Scouts in that much regard. Many of us in this congregation, besides the Boy Scouts, know the Boy Scout oath. Would you say it with me? On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. I forgot to do that part. Okay. There are 3 parts to that oath, beginning with a solemn promise to always strive to do the best of our abilities. 2, duty to God and country. Your family and religious leaders have been teaching you to know and serve God. By following these teachings, you do your duty to God. Men and women of the past worked hard to make America great. Many gave their lives for their country. By being a good family member and a good citizen, by working for your country's good and obeying its laws, you do your duty to your country. Second element is duty to other people. Lots of people need help. A cheery smile and a helping hand make life easier for others. We often have the vision of the Scout helping an elderly lady across the street. It's almost a joke. I've never had an opportunity to do that, but I've had numerous occasions to give a helping hand. Doing a good turn daily, you prove yourself a Scout and do your part to make this a better world. If you think about that, you will strive to do one good thing every single day. A couple of weeks ago, Dr. Toole had a children's moment with his friend Ralph. Ralph is a hand puppet, looks like a dog. Ralph told the kids that he tried to get a good dog every day. Doing a good deed a day will get you one of our good dogs. Perhaps we could even think of that as good Scout. Third element is duty to self. Taking care of yourself is vital. Eating right, maintaining your strength, staying mentally awake means that you need to be constantly learning. Being morally straight means to live your life with honesty. Always doing the right thing for the right reason will create in you a person who others want to trust and work with. Now, the Scout law is another that a lot of us can repeat. And if you can join me, a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Thank you. We don't need to explain those words. We know what they mean, don't we? We all know that a Scout must be all 12 of those attributes. But what about the rest of us in this sanctuary this morning? I submit to you that those are also the key attributes of a good Christian. It's really easy to say that we are Christians because we follow the teachings of Christ. That's kind of all it takes, right? That's said easily. But can you enumerate those teachings? Dr. Toole can. Can any of the rest of us enumerate them? I propose that the 12 principles of the Boy Scout law make up a huge portion of the list we would create if we brainstormed the answer to my question. So let's recite the Christian law together. A Christian is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Let's now go back to our New Testament lesson this morning from Luke 2, verses 41 through 52, and look at the relevance of what we talked about here. Luke begins by telling us that it was the time of the Feast of the Passover. The significance here is that all good practicing Jews tried to go to Jerusalem at this time of year. It was natural that Joseph and Mary went every year, and so this year is the same as all others. Jesus would have remembered the feast as something he had done since his earliest memories. This year, though, was to become different, that this 12-year-old was becoming a man and knew he would have to soon begin performing the tasks of a man. I look out here at our scouts ages 7 to 13 or so and think that is what Jesus would have looked and acted like in modern day. He was not wise in the ways of an adult, but he had been a good boy and a good student, so he knew that he must begin to act differently. Jesus had wisdom, as do our scouts, but it wasn't refined or perhaps had rough edges, which would polish off with age. We can't help but notice that Joseph and Mary were a full day's travel from Jerusalem before they noticed that Jesus wasn't with them. Can you imagine what the political correctness enforcers would say today if the parents didn't notice that their 12-year-old son wasn't with them. But in all fairness, it looks like there was a fairly large group of people traveling together, and it would have been fairly easy for this to happen. I can only imagine how they would have reacted when they couldn't find him in the crowd. Everything we know about Mary indicates that she was a good mother. I can only imagine how frantic she must have been. The phrase "out of her mind with worry" comes to mind. They went back and found Jesus 3 days later in the synagogue, listening to the rabbis and asking them questions. Luke tells us that everyone was amazed at Jesus' understanding and the brilliance of his answers. Up to this point in his life, Jesus had been just like any other boy. In fact, we have no record of anything from his 8th day to his 12th year. We don't have any accounts of his first steps or his first words, but it's pretty easy to imagine that his youth was very unremarkable. Now, Mom and Dad see their very normal son sitting and engaging with the learned teachers in Jerusalem. Mary then says to Jesus, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." Here Mary proves to be a very, very normal mother. "Why did you do this to me?" Jesus answered her with, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" This is when we fully realize that he was indeed 12. Jesus' response says, "I don't get it. It all makes sense to me." The final verse I read verbatim, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." And there it is. With one simple statement, Luke tells us that Jesus grew up to be a fine young man. I believe that Jesus would have made a truly great Boy Scout, and that he would have fully endorsed its programs. These scouts who are amongst us have wisdom just like Christ had. When we engage them, we can learn a lot. But so often, we tend to discount the ramblings of youth, and then fail to understand why we don't get them. And worse yet, they don't get us. We chartered these 2 scouting organizations with the express purpose of assisting our young men to get the tools and understanding to grow into the adults that this nation will need as productive citizens. I, for one, am very proud of the long partnership that Grove, Troop 802, and PAC 802 have enjoyed. As we began this discussion this morning, I pointed out there was a connection between the military scout and the Boy Scout. The military scout does his or her job by locating and developing information about the enemy military unit with whom his troop will likely become engaged. Our Boy Scouts also need to learn about the enemy. In their case, the enemy is likely a hostile climate or terrain. It may be that some outside influence is trying to draw the scout away from the principles and the scout law, which makes the scout the good citizen. Influence like smoking, drugs, illegal behavior, and so on. We Christians are also in need of being good scouts. There is an enemy who is trying to lead us astray anywhere at any time. So many of our friends and family members do not or cannot be aware of this evil, and so we, God's scouts, have to be on the lookout to determine where and who that enemy is and provide the support and assistance to help our unit of friends and family avoid capture and failure. Are you practicing good scouting principles? Are you willing to commit yourself to be a good scout for Jesus? I pledge on my honor to do my best to serve my Lord and Savior. Amen. Our second hymn is number 502, "Be Thou My Vision, O Lord, my heart."